A useful way to understand my concerns is to attempt to put yourself in the shoes of an asylum seeker being brought to Christmas Island. During this process, you are separated from your belongings. Critical for medical care, this includes your health information such as specialist letters and medical records. There might be ultrasound reports from your current pregnancy. All of this information will be difficult to retrieve and is almost invariably lost to you and the doctors attempting to care for your health.
But the physical space is extremely harsh. What this child has drawn here is this phosphate soil that exists everywhere from the phosphate mines. It's an incredibly harsh, crunchy, painful surface on which to walk, and children cannot be put down to crawl or move around in that environment.
Your medications, many of which will not be available on the island for perhaps weeks, are parted from you. These medications were in fact being destroyed by a couple of nurses popping pills into a rubbish bin, with no records being kept of what medications were being destroyed or who they belonged to.
And she remained quite composed as she told me how her brother had been killed in front of her. She remained composed as she recounted how scared she was of the waves and the sharks in the water as she made the perilous boat journey to Australia. She remained composed as she showed me the sores on her arms that won't heal in the tropical heat, and her bloodshot eyes caused by the phosphate dust on the island. It was only when Roma told me that during her 8 months on Christmas Island, she'd spent just 2 weeks at the local school, and that was essentially a playgroup, that she finally broke down in tears. She knows that to be deprived of an education while in detention is to take away not only her liberty, but her chances for a fulfilled life in the future.
The Australian government is deliberately putting people in situations which it knows are deleterious to their health. It's doing it to a cohort of people which it knows are carrying with them, in many cases, large amounts of trauma and other forms of health problems associated with them being refugees. And it's doing this on the basis of a lie. It's saying that they're administratively processing them, when in fact what they're doing is punishing them and trying to deter others.
I can't back Iran, and they also talk about I can't back, because everybody says, apparently guards will ask, why don't you go back? I can't back, but I'm died. And this is a child who's drawn, tears, the only colour is red, and that's Tony Abbott with a smile on his face.
However, it is shameful to consider that Australia has poured hundreds of millions, possibly billions, into developing PNG's health sector, and PNG's health statistics remain somewhere down on the charts with the Sudan and the Yemen and some of the places worse than some of the places that people have fled from.
Very small, rudimentary conditions at best, where they're housed in tents and sleeping on stretcher beds, 8 to 10 men to a tent. In the middle of the day, these tents reach 50 degrees Celsius. In the wet season, the camp floods.
And we were specifically named and targeted in that report, and we were in the same paragraph as human rights breaches by the Ukraine, North Korea, Sri Lanka and Syria.
Those are the famous Christmas Island crabs, and they're an endangered species, and you will be fined $3,000 if you drive over a crab. One of the things that the detainees said to us, a few, was that people care more about the crabs on Christmas Island than they do about the detainees.
It's quite clear that we as a society are denying to a group of people the right to be healthy.